Hey, we are two Star Wars nerds, and today we are talking about the Nute Gunray arc in the Clone Wars animated series.
Yes.
If you didn't know, what we're doing is we're going through every single arc in the Clone Wars in chronological order. We tried it a different way, didn't work, so we're like, let's watch it the best way you possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, watch the Clone Wars in chronological order. You will not regret it.
Yeah.
So, this arc, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's a little interesting. But what I'll do is I'm going to give a brief summary, and then we will talk about this almost by episode, but kind of moments, and then rate it. You'll see why in just a moment. So basically how this starts out is you have Padme Amidala going into the Outer Rim, specifically to Rhodia, because they need help.
Yeah.
And essentially, when she gets there, she finds out that the Rhodians have actually made an agreement with the Trade Federation, very reminiscent of kind of like Naboo in The Phantom Menace. Not really, but like they didn't make an agreement, but Padme saying like, hey, I remember how this was.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was more so the reminiscence of she's going back.
Right.
And she's like, hey, I've seen this before. Don't be with them. And Jar Jar and 3PO go along with Padme, and they stay back, and obviously all this stuff happens. Padme gets arrested for for Dooku basically to show up and to get her. And so this whole kind of hijinks thing happens with Jar Jar. He finds Anakin's robe. He doesn't know it's Anakin's Jedi robe, but he finds
Padme's
it.
ship.
Yes. Ooh. But he is mistaken for a Jedi, so the Trade Federation are freaking out. He like befriends a slug underwater.
An underwater giant slug.
Yeah, and they basically gonna defeat the droids and arrest Gunray, right? That's the first episode. 108, Bombad Jedi. Goes right into 109, Cloak of Darkness. And this is Luminara Unduli and Ahsoka transporting Gunray now to a secure prison. And there are Senate guards, Senate commandos guarding him, and Dooku has sent Asajj to break him out. And you see a lot of Ahsoka acting like Anakin, because that's her master. And basically, there is a betrayal by one of the Senate commandos, and basically he turns and he says, hey, I was offered a ton of money. So he helps Gunray break out and leave with Asajj Ventress. And this episode is pretty cool. Cloak of Darkness, not gonna lie. Then we go right in. These are back to back in an arc, which was a little different for season 1. But we go right into the Lair of Grievous episode. And this is where it starts to disassociate a little bit because basically Kit Fisto is sent to find Gunray, and they're like, okay, we think he's here. So they go, and basically they find out he kind of was there, but
trap.
Left, and it was a trap, all this stuff. And basically the whole thing was, okay, you're going to kill Jedi and Padawan and the clones, and we're going to show them who's boss. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens, but it is really not about Nute Gunray, but it closes the arc.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you see him at the beginning, and he's being a little deceptive, and then he gets arrested and transported to prison, and he's broken out, and you think you've got him, but you don't.
Right.
So that's pretty much what happens. But what are your favorite moments in this arc?
I think one of my favorite moments is actually from Bombad Jedi, with just Jar Jar being mistaken as a Jedi Knight. And I just think it's funny how they're so afraid of him. And I like that he befriends the sea giant slug.
Yeah.
And I also really like how he calls 3PO 3-so. And
3-so.
like 3PO corrects him, and it doesn't, he just keeps calling him 3-so. So I think that's super funny. Just made me laugh, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Jar Jar being a Jedi is just a funny sight to me.
And something interesting about Jar Jar in this too, his voice changes.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a side note. Like, it was a little weird to hear the voice actor change. Maybe he got sick or something. I don't know. But that was interesting. Yeah. Anyway.
In Cloak of Darkness, I thought it was cool to see Ahsoka with someone else. And just even seeing how Luminara, is that? Yeah. She's very different than Anakin, and just seeing their dynamic, and then seeing how they end up working together is super cool, and how they appreciate each other in the end. And then layer of Grievous in the last episode of this arc, I thought Grievous's lair is pretty cool, and I'm actually a big fan of Kit Fisto, so it's cool to see him, and even how he's trying to help his old Padawan. I think it was his old Padawan, or at least it was an old youngling.
Yeah, because he's a Jedi Knight now.
Yeah.
As of that episode.
And you kind of see like this heartbreak on Kit Fisto. He's like, that's not what you've been taught, and obviously it doesn't end well for this guy. But I like Kit Fisto. I like just seeing his heart still trying to train this guy, even though this guy has a lot of pride and ego. I can't remember his name, so forgive me. But yeah, I think Grievous's lair looks super cool, and those are kind of my favorite things about the Nute Gunray arc.
Cool. I will say, on Lair of Grievous, I think that episode would it kind of made me think like a Lair of Grievous video game would be so cool. Like a Star Wars Lair of Grievous where Grievous is the final boss. Obviously, it's like, for it to be a game, it couldn't be canon if you like kill him and stuff. But it's like, maybe he just runs away and escapes, I don't know.
Well, as he normally does.
Yeah, and then it can be
canon.
So
it's canon.
But Lair of Grievous for me was really, really cool. But it did affect my overall score of the arc because it didn't really fit in for me. I guess it's kind of, it took a deep dive because it's like, hey, you're going to get Nute Gunray. Just kidding. And then you watch this deep dive and this plummet. Right. It was still really awesome. For me, it was the best episode out of the arc, but it was loosely in the arc. Cloak of Darkness, I really liked, because I keep saying this and I'm probably going to say it a million more times as we talk about the Clone Wars. I really like Asajj Ventress. I really do. Awesome. And in particular, in Cloak of Darkness, I love the music whenever Asajj is on screen, because it has these like haunting strings and these really dissonant chords, and it really makes you feel uneasy. Yeah. And especially in season 1 of Clone Wars, they had some very unique music decisions. Like there's some techno rock, there's some more like pop rock kind of stuff. So there's some interesting things. So for them to go back to kind of like strings and things like that, it felt like Star Wars, and it just made her feel evil. Like you felt like her aura, so to speak, right? But I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of Jar Jar, but I did think that it was a really unique idea to basically play off of what happened in The Phantom Menace with Padme running into Nute Gunray again, and to have Jar Jar running into him again, but they think he's a Jedi, and all these things are happening to make it look like he is. Right. And so that was pretty funny. It was not the biggest fan of Jar Jar's humor, but I think it works well, especially for a kids show. Jar Jar, I feel like, reminds me, he's very reminiscent of like a Scooby-Doo. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, and I love Scooby-Doo. That's a whole other topic, but just that clumsy, but somehow it always works out. I appreciate Jar Jar because I grew up on Scooby-Doo, and obviously I've grown up on Star Wars, so I'm for it. Yeah, and love him or hate him, he's a part of Star Wars, and he's a part of what George wanted. So at the end of the day, you just have to choose, do you like it or not? And Jar Jar slowly has warmed on my heart. I don't hate him. But one thing I will say, probably my favorite part of this whole arc, and then we'll rate it. I honestly, I loved Grievous's lair. There's a scene where you see like his collection of Padawan braids, and he collects lightsabers, and you see all of his masks. I liked seeing that. It was cool. It's these little details to help kind of answer the question and the mystery of who is Grievous, you know. And they even reference, like, you were a great warrior, but you're not anymore. So it's like, okay, we're calling back to his history. It was cool.
Right.
So what would you rate this arc out of 10?
Let me just double check my notes. Okay, a 6 out of 10 is what I would give this arc.
Fair enough. For me, I would rate this a 7 out of 10. Bombad Jedi for me was low. Cloak of Darkness was pretty good. Lair of Grievous was really good, but Lair of Grievous didn't really fit into the arc for me, so that's why it gets 7 out of 10. Like, I would rewatch it again, but it's just okay.
And I think why it's a little bit lower for me is because before it obviously is Malevolence, which is action-packed, and what we actually watched before was Domino Squad. So just how action-packed those episodes were. This one kind of, I guess, didn't measure up, and maybe I shouldn't be comparing it, but that's just how it worked out for me, because I'm like, well, it's not on the same level of Malevolence or Domino Squad to me, so that's why I dropped it.
And, you know, I think that's fair, because even the action you do see is it's not like super exciting. And so when the narrative in the story isn't super strong, it's good, but it's not like banger and narrative forward, and then the action's not matching up. Makes sense.
I mean, and I have no problem. I like the arc. I enjoyed it.
Still a pass.
Yep.
Still a pass. So with that, we are two Star Wars nerds, and may the Force be with you always.